There is a country where more than 80% of the land remains blanketed by pristine tropical rainforest. A place where rivers are so vast they look like seas from above. And where roads are so scarce that many villages can only be reached by canoe or small propeller aircraft. In the heart of South America, where nearly every nation speaks Spanish or Portuguese, there is still a land that speaks the language of Britain, where colonial wooden houses stand at the edge of the Amazon rainforest, and where a society has been shaped by centuries of migration from people of many different cultures. That land is Guyana. A country so often overlooked that many people around the world could hardly point to it on a map. So, what is life really like here? That's exactly what we're about to discover. In the northeastern corner of South America, Guyana stretches from the shores of the Atlantic Ocean to the ancient Guyana Shield, one of the oldest geological formations still standing on Earth. Venezuela borders it to the west, Brazil to the south, and Suriname to the east. On the map, Guyana appears to be a small nation tucked between neighbors many times its size. More than 4/5 of Guyana remains covered by tropical rainforest. Endless green canopies stretch for hundreds of kilometers, broken only by countless reddish-brown rivers carrying rich sediments from deep within the continent. Even today, vast areas remain almost entirely untouched, providing sanctuary for jaguars, giant otters, harpy eagles, and thousands of plant species that have thrived much as they did millions of years ago. Nearly 90% of Guyana's population lives along a narrow coastal strip that occupies only a tiny fraction of the country's land. Beyond it lies an immense landscape of rainforest, wetlands, rolling hills, and highlands where people are scattered across vast distances. In many places, the distance between two villages is greater than the distance separating cities in other countries. As a result, Guyana has long existed as two very different worlds side by side. One is the rapidly developing coastal region, transformed by a booming oil economy. The other is the remote interior, where indigenous communities continue to live deep within the rainforest, and where the sound of birds greeting the morning is still far more common than the roar of engines. Guyana is also the only country in South America where English is the official language. This legacy comes from more than 2 centuries of British colonial rule, leaving a lasting imprint on the nation's legal system, education, architecture, and even the rhythm of everyday life. White-painted wooden houses with wide verandas, historic churches, British-style schools, and even driving on the left all give many visitors the feeling that they are somewhere in the Caribbean rather than in the middle of South America. Yet Guyana has never belonged to just one culture. Indigenous peoples lived here for thousands of years before Africans were brought during the era of slavery. Later came indentured laborers from India, China, and Portugal. Over generations, they have together shaped one of the most culturally diverse nations in the region. To truly understand this country, we first need to visit Georgetown, the heart of Guyana, where the story of its people truly begins. As dawn breaks over the Atlantic coast, the city slowly comes to life. Brightly painted minibuses weave through the streets. Fruit vendors open their roadside stalls. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingles with the scent of hot coffee drifting from small cafes. Friendly greetings in English blend with the distinctive rhythm of Guyanese Creole, creating a soundscape found nowhere else but Georgetown. Nearly 90% of Guyana's people live along the coastal region, and nowhere reflects that reality more clearly than Georgetown. More than the nation's administrative capital, it is the meeting place of nearly every cultural tradition that has helped shape Guyana over the centuries. Few countries in the world bring together so many different ethnic communities as naturally as Guyana does. People of Indian, African, Amerindian, European, Chinese, and Portuguese descent are often referred to as Guyana's six peoples. Each community carries its own history, language, beliefs, and traditions. Yet over time, they have woven together a shared identity that is impossible to separate. That remarkable diversity grew out of a history that was anything but easy. During the colonial era, tens of thousands of Africans were brought here to work as slaves on the sugar plantations. After slavery was abolished in the 19th century, the British brought indentured workers from India. Later came migrants from China, Portugal's Madeira Island, and many other places. Some arrived by force, others in search of opportunity, while many simply hoped to begin a new life. Today, it is common for Guyanese families to carry several different cultural heritages under one roof. One thing that unites the people of Guyana is their love of conversation and laughter. Smiles come easily here, especially during everyday conversations. Even when life is challenging, humor finds its way into the stories they tell, the jokes they share with friends, and the playful banter they exchange with complete strangers. Perhaps it is because life unfolds within such an immense natural landscape, where distance has always been a challenge, that human connection has become one of life's greatest treasures. If Georgetown is the heart of Guyana, then Stabroek Market is the lifeblood that keeps that heart beating. Built in the late 19th century beside the Demerara River, its iconic iron clock tower has long stood as one of Georgetown's most recognizable landmarks. Long before the sun climbs high into the sky, small trucks begin arriving one after another. From coastal farms come bunches of bananas, coconuts, pumpkins, cassava, and sugarcane piled high in the back. From the great rivers, fishermen bring in fresh snapper, catfish, freshwater prawns, and crabs caught overnight. And from indigenous communities, deep within the rainforest, come wild honey, tropical fruits, medicinal herbs, and beautifully handcrafted goods. In Guyana, Stabroek Market is far more than a place to buy and sell. It is where the sea, the rainforest, and the city all come together. Most of the food sold at Stabroek Market comes directly from Guyana itself. From rice fields along the coast to small family farms, from freshwater rivers to the Atlantic Ocean, and even the tropical rainforest stretching hundreds of kilometers into the interior. Surrounded by such extraordinary natural abundance, the people of Guyana have long embraced eating with the seasons and the rhythms of each region. During the rainy season, the market overflows with tropical fruits. When the waters begin to recede, freshwater fish and prawns become far more plentiful. There is no need for large advertisements. A single walk through the market tells locals exactly which season nature has entered. Daily life in Guyana unfolds at a slower pace than in many other places. The day begins early to avoid the tropical heat. By midday, the streets grow quieter as temperatures rise. Then, as the afternoon cools, the roads come alive once again. Children play soccer on open fields. Adults sit on their verandas chatting with neighbors. Roadside food stalls begin filling with customers. The sounds of reggae, soca, and calypso drift from small speakers, blending with the ocean breeze rustling through rows of coconut palms. In Georgetown, people rarely feel swept along by the rush of modern life. Somehow, everyone still seems to have a few extra minutes to stop and enjoy a conversation. In a country where church bells may ring at the very same moment as prayers echo from a Hindu temple or a mosque, differences have never been barriers. Instead, they have become the very foundation of Guyana's unique identity. Centuries of migration have given Guyana a cultural heritage unlike almost anywhere else. Every community has brought its own customs and traditions. Yet rather than remaining separate, they gradually learned to share the same homeland. Nowhere is this more evident than during the nation's celebrations. Every February, when Mashramani arrives, Georgetown is transformed into a sea of color. The streets come alive with parades, music, and dazzling costumes. The name Mashramani comes from an indigenous language and means a celebration after the successful completion of a great task. Today, the festival commemorates the day Guyana became a republic, but for many Guyanese, it is also a time when every community celebrates together without regard for heritage or background. People of African descent dance to the beat of traditional drums. Families of Indian heritage join vibrant processions filled with music and color. Indigenous communities perform dances that have been passed down through countless generations. Visitors may find it impossible to tell who belongs to which ethnic group. And perhaps that no longer matters to the people of Guyana during these joyful celebrations. The warm glow of thousands of oil lamps and candles begins to appear outside homes across the country. It is Diwali, the festival of lights, celebrated by the Hindu community. As night falls, Georgetown sparkles beneath rows of colorful lights stretching through its streets. Not long afterward, the final months of the year bring yet another celebration. Christmas carols fill the churches. Christmas trees appear throughout the city center. Families gather to prepare festive meals together. At the same time, the Muslim community observes important occasions such as Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, bringing people together in prayer, sharing meals, and exchanging gifts with loved ones. This remarkable harmony can also be seen in Georgetown's architecture. Within just a short walk, visitors may pass a colonial-era Anglican church built of wood, a brightly painted Hindu temple, and a mosque crowned with its graceful dome. None seeks to overshadow the others. Instead, they stand side by side like different chapters of the same story. Not long ago, Guyana was best known for its vast rainforests, mighty rivers, and the breathtaking Kayatur Falls. Today, however, the country's name appears increasingly often in global economic headlines. That is because the nation has finally discovered a resource capable of transforming its future. Just a few hundred kilometers off Guyana's coast, beneath the waters of the Atlantic Ocean, enormous offshore oil reserves were discovered in the mid-2010s. The scale of these discoveries surprised the world. In less than a decade, Guyana has gone from having a modest economy to becoming one of the fastest-growing economies on Earth. Annual growth figures reaching several dozen % sound almost too extraordinary to be real. In Georgetown, that transformation is impossible to miss. New hotels continue to rise. Modern office buildings are reshaping the skyline. The streets are busier, the port more active than ever. Specialists from around the world have arrived, bringing investment, expertise, and opportunities few could have imagined just a few years ago. A country once known for its quiet pace of life has suddenly entered a period of remarkable growth. Yet oil is far from Guyana's only source of prosperity. Along the fertile coastal plains, rice fields stretch toward the horizon. Today, Guyana ranks among the Caribbean's leading rice producers. Farther inland, the country's vast forests provide another vital source of livelihood. Timber, natural resins, medicinal plants, and many other forest products have supported indigenous and forest communities for generations. The rivers are equally important. Every morning, hundreds of small boats set out before dawn. Their catches of fish, shrimp, and crabs are delivered directly to markets, such as Stabroek Market, where they become staples on family dinner tables across the country. Even today, fishing in Guyana remains largely a small-scale, community-based way of life. Another sector steadily gaining momentum is ecotourism. While many countries must restore or recreate natural environments to attract visitors, Guyana hardly needs to. Its greatest attraction is the untouched wilderness itself. Increasingly, locally owned eco-lodges are welcoming travelers while creating new opportunities for communities and giving residents even greater reason to protect the forests that have sustained them for generations. If Guyanese culture is a richly woven tapestry, then its cuisine is the thread that binds every color together. When situated at the crossroads of the Amazon rainforest and the Caribbean Sea, the country's table brings together indigenous Amerindian traditions, the bold spices of India, the rich flavors of Africa, and touches of European and Chinese influence. No dish captures the soul of Guyana quite like pepper pot, the nation's beloved signature stew, passed down through generations of Indigenous families, widely regarded as the country's national dish. Pepper pot is slow-cooked with a variety of meats and local spices, most notably cassaripe, a rich sauce made from bitter cassava by the Amerindian people. The sauce's unique balance of gentle bitterness and lingering sweetness blends beautifully with tender meat infused with cinnamon and cloves, traditionally served alongside soft, fresh bread. At Christmas time, countless families gather around a pot of pepper pot that has simmered for hours. Its comforting aroma fills the entire home. Children eagerly wait for the meal, while the older generations share stories from years gone by. Simple yet deeply meaningful, pepper pot is more than just a traditional dish. It is a symbol of family, togetherness, and home. Visitors to Guyana also fall in love with the warmth of a Saturday afternoon shared over cook-up rice, rich with creamy coconut milk, or with the simple pleasure of tearing apart soft roti by hand to scoop up a bowl of fragrant, fiery goat curry. The cuisine here is never about elaborate presentation. Instead, it wins people over with its generosity, honesty, and the warmth found in every ingredient. Every meal reflects a history of resilience, sharing, and cultures brought together over centuries into something uniquely Guyanese. Leaving behind the warmth of the kitchen, Guyana brings us face to face with one of Earth's last great wildernesses. With more than 80% of its land covered by tropical rainforest, it remains home to one of the planet's most intact natural ecosystems. Jaguars move silently beneath the forest canopy. Giant otters glide together through winding rivers. Harpy eagles, among the largest eagles on Earth, build their nests high in towering ancient trees. Howler monkeys, sloths, giant anteaters, and hundreds of tropical bird species all share a landscape that has remained largely untouched by human hands. Farther southwest, the landscape begins to change. Here, nature has created one of Guyana's most iconic landmarks, Kayatur Falls, the world's tallest single-drop waterfall by volume. Water plunges more than 200 meters in one uninterrupted descent. The roar can be heard from far away, powerful enough to drown out even the wind itself. The Potaro River seems to disappear from the surface of the earth, plunging into a deep gorge in one spectacular leap. A tremendous wall of water crashes into a cloud of white mist below, leaving visitors with a profound sense of just how small humanity can seem before the forces of nature. Guyana's natural beauty is further enriched by the Essequibo River, the longest river in the country. For centuries, communities along its banks have depended on it for transportation, fishing, trade, and their connection to the outside world. With a population of fewer than 1 million people, this small nation safeguards one of the Earth's most important green lungs. It is a source of tremendous pride, but also an enormous responsibility. Seasonal flooding, the isolation of remote communities, economic inequality, and the challenges of balancing development with conservation remain part of daily life. They are the quieter side of a country that often appears peaceful at first glance. Yet behind Guyana's breathtaking wilderness and remarkable economic growth lies another, less visible reality. The untouched beauty of its vast rainforests can also become an invisible barrier, isolating thousands of people living deep within the country's interior. Guyana's development has unfolded unevenly. While the coastal region and Georgetown are rapidly transforming through investment from the oil industry, remote regions such as Barima Waini and Kuyuni Mazaruni continue to face the quiet struggle of everyday hardship. In these remote areas, transportation infrastructure remains a luxury. Rivers and narrow forest trails, often flooded during the rainy season, are still the only routes connecting many villages. Access to even the most basic services, from medical clinics stocked with essential medicines to schools with reliable electricity and internet, remains an unattainable dream for many generations of Indigenous children. The challenges extend far beyond geographic isolation. Although the rapid growth of the gold mining and oil industries has brought enormous wealth to the country, it has also driven up the cost of living, widened the gap between rich and poor, and placed increasing pressure on fragile natural ecosystems. Living in a country blessed with extraordinary natural resources, many Guyanese still ask the same difficult question. How can progress move forward without leaving anyone behind? How can the promise of prosperity reach homes hidden beneath the rainforest canopy in the most distant corners of the nation? And yet, despite the hardships of daily life, despite the isolation and the many challenges people continue to face, remarkably few choose to leave this land behind. Poverty has not weakened their love for home. If anything, it has strengthened the bond between the people of Guyana and the country they call their own. So what is it that continues to hold them here in a world that is changing so rapidly? The answer is not found in promises of wealth or gleaming skyscrapers. People stay because they belong to this land in the deepest sense of the word. For Indigenous peoples such as the Makushi and the Warao, the rainforest is not a commodity, nor are the rivers obstacles to overcome. They are part of their identity, the legacy of their ancestors, and a living storehouse of knowledge passed down through countless generations. They remain because they understand that if the forest is lost, a part of who they are will disappear with it. The people of Guyana are also bound together by an extraordinary sense of community. Here, no one is expected to face life's burdens alone. Material hardship is softened by the strength of neighborly support, by a reassuring hand in difficult times, by a plate of roti willingly shared, and by the warm smiles exchanged each new morning. They stay because of their love for life's simplest treasures: the rich scent of damp earth after a tropical rain, the gentle sweetness of fresh coconut water by the coast, and the quiet comfort of being completely themselves in the place they call home. Guyana may still be a developing nation, but in the hearts of its people, there is nowhere else on earth that embodies the true meaning of one simple word: home. As the sun slowly disappears behind the endless rainforest, golden light shimmers across the waters of the Demerara River. Fishing boats quietly return to shore after a long day at sea. Wisps of smoke begin rising from wooden riverside homes. Children's voices echo through the neighborhoods before gradually giving way to the sounds of insects. And the evening breeze drifting through the tropical forest. Tomorrow, the farmers will once again head into the fields at first light. Fishermen will cast their nets while the sea is still wrapped in morning mist. The markets will awaken just as they have for generations. The forests will continue breathing on behalf of the planet. And every morning, the people of Guyana wake knowing that no matter how quickly the world beyond their borders may change, there will always be one place waiting to welcome them home. That place is Guyana.